So I wanted to get a video of me embellishing this thing so that you guys could kind of see my mental process, but there's absolutely nowhere right now that I can sit with my filming rig and make it comfortable. So I'm at the point where I'm getting ready to add special materials. I've washed it off already, and I just added in these little seed stitches, to give me some depth where I've got this kind of moss growing up. I think these are the fruiting bodies of a firecracker moss. There's a bunch of green moss at the bottom of the moss that I'm trying to mimic here. So the moss, but this gives you a lot of depth actually if you just do these nice little seed stitches. So I wanted to point that out, but I'm going to stitch this with it turned on its side like this, and then I'll use my special materials to kind of just weave it, and I can make it fluffier or less fluffy by just wrapping it multiple times. But I can also kind of do a ladder stitch through random seed stitches. It does not have to be a perfect ladder stitch. So I will be back shortly to show you what that looks like with the special fiber on it. But I wanted to show you how much depth it gives it if you're ever just making yourself a cute little scene or don't want to use special fibers. I think it was a nice effect with just the variegated seed stitches. So part one of the embellishing with embellishments. Yes, thank you, Bean. The cat's here to help. Great news. Okay, having to show you left-handed because I'm holding my phone with the right, but I have pulled just a tiny bit of the thread through because it's very unlikely it will pull through. It's so fuzzy. So it's a bit of a struggle to get it in. Use a needle threader that's the kind of hooky one if you can. So it's in there, and so that I'm not moving that down the thread, I just pulled the tiny tail through. That's all I need. And then for the tail end, I just tied a knot and then trimmed it off so that it will just blend right in with the rest of the level of fuzz. And then I'm going to be, like I said before, sorry, whoa, seasick, sorry. I'm going to be basically doing a ladder stitch, but kind of a randomized ladder stitch to accentuate these mossy areas. So I will show you that in a second. Okay, so I was able to do that whole bunch of this just doing that little whipping / ladder stitch technique with like just that little 10 inches of floss. So that was very efficient. A+ rating on that part. Next, I think I will add in some rocks, and then I think I might make the actual path out of real moss. I remain undecided. I'll be back when I decide to glue something on. Okay, so I decided that my best bet was to get the path in because I think I can use another fuzzy thread and work in between some little pebbles that came in our embellishment pack. So I can work some of those down. I'm gonna glue it on with my favorite 2-part epoxy. Is that overkill? It sure is. Will it ever come off? It sure freaking won't. This is the one I use. It's the cheapest one. It comes on Amazon. It works great. It's made in the USA. It supports a small American business, and I'm fine with that. So that's good. So I'm going to mix up some of this goop, and then I will attempt to get pictures of what it looks like. I'm almost able to hold this in my left hand and film at the same time. So I will do my best. Okay, so I mixed up some epoxy. You really don't need any, hardly. This is a sacrificial epoxy needle that I use for everything. I'm going to try to do this visually and through with the camera. So I'm just going to literally dab on little things, little glue blobs. And you get 15 minutes of work time with this glue, which is great. And I'm going to literally just kind of let the glue land where it lands, because I can always catch it again with a rock or something. Or I'll cover it up with moss. But I'm going to try and kind of randomly place these dots so that I can stitch between them. in like a little bit of a rocky path or area in front of the house. So I'm going to dot this up and I will show you when I'm putting the rocks on. Okay, I have sufficient glue. I have these little offset tweezers basically, and I'm going to try to stick to mostly smaller ones, but some of the larger glue dots I can put bigger ones on. So many choices. But I think it will give it a neat look, and if you're trying to give it some perspective, forced though it may be, you can put kind of the larger stones out front and then stick to like little bittier ones as you work your way back to get a little path in, and then we'll be able to stitch around that. And while I have the glue already ready, I'm going to take some of the embellishments from the kit and do the caps of the mushrooms while I have fresh resin. Oop! Well, shot that one across the room. And tuck in a couple more here. Get some small ones. Might want it to be a little less dense, but I can always flick off a piece later or add some more if I need to. Sorry for any background noise. This is not my normal filming hours, so the cats in the house are making noise. Okay, I think that will be pretty good. I might add a couple, and then I'm gonna do some gemming up here. Okay, I think I got the rocks spread around where I would like them, and I have glued up at the top. I still have a few minutes left. Oh, apparently I left some space there. Now I need to fill those in. Don't even remember putting extra glue down, but here we go. Okay, so I'm going to put some tiny little chips in there, and I'm going to put these on top. I'm using this, which is a wax, like diamond painting, or anyone who does any kind of bedazzling of stuff. And then I have my pile of embellishments over here. So I'm going to do those and see you in a second. Okay, I got all those on there. And if you have any uncured glue remaining, this will be the time it will be handy for you to put on some of your actual physical moss. The hell is my moss? Oh, for pity's sake. Okay, here's my moss. Here's my moss. You just want to apply a really thin bead of glue wherever you are going to put the moss so that you have lots of room to sew down the moss and tame the moss once the glue has cured. So I'm going to get some very crazy mossing going on before this glue cures. Okay, I know it looks crazy, but don't panic. Trust the process. We're going to let this cure. I have mooshed it down nice and hard, but it is reindeer moss, so it's going to be fluffy. I just wanted to note that, like, when I'm embellishing something like this in a maximalist style, I'm kind of trying to consider making sure I've built a base for the next things that I'm putting on so they're not all floating in space. We've got a little more visual depth, and once we flatten these out with some stitches tomorrow, once it's cured, this will look much tidier. But I will see you in the next one when I stitch these little boogers down. Okay, so the resin is cured enough, and I've got a single strand of just any random piece of mossy kind of colors. I'm using a variegated so it camouflages itself, and I'm gonna just do some couching stitches, as they would call them, but we're doing them over moss. You could add anything you wanted as far as like weird twisty stitches and all kinds of stuff. I just think of it as like making a platform for other embellishments I want to add. There has to be enough base to support all the shininess. So that's what I'm thinking in my head whenever I'm making these bases. So this reindeer moss has a texture that you can really kind of smoosh and then pierce it, and it kind of will hold its own shape. So you can take advantage of that and kind of sculpt it as you go. You can see where it was kind of covering up the base of the mushroom, so I'm just pushing it out of the way of my needle, which kind of traps the moss below that space, and then wrapping it over and tucking the stitch in wherever I can to kind of mask it. And you can see this one is looking pretty good and nice and crispy. Okay, and sorry for any late night sounds or my weird, super quiet indoor voice. It is 11:37 p.m. and my husband has to sleep at some point, and if I talk too loud, the cats will come in because they'll think something interesting is happening. What we have here is the tidied up moss. I think I'm gonna take the Rainbow Gallery, and I actually pulled that through 2 layers of fabric in a couple places just to see what would happen, and it was fun. So I'm going to stitch a mossy path in between these, and whether or not I wait until morning so that all the chips don't come flying off, we will see. An absolutely massive bless up to the Rainbow Gallery fuzzy stuff. This stuff is killer. It was strong enough that if I just pulled through really slowly and only worked in straight stitches, that basically it was perfect. I just had to pull through really, really gently and really, really slowly. But I think that makes a really cute little path. What do you think? Okay, it's daylight again, and I'm semi-human. It's 1 p.m. Great. Definitely didn't waste half this day. Okay, so what I'm thinking is I want a little more definition coming down for some depth down these sides. I'm also thinking about, I'm going to be putting it in a smaller hoop, so this is going to get crowded down here very quickly. And I also feel like there's not enough visual weight on this side, so I think I'm going to add some mosses down here, just stitch them on with that single strand of thread I lost. Sorry for the seasick movements again. I found this really cute little piece of sphagnum moss in an old arrangement, so I think I'm going to glue that here to like kind of break up that visually a little bit. And then I wanted to say that when I'm doing like this maximalist kind of stuff, the whole reason I'm going to add some extra moss coming down to frame in the path here is because if I use a bunch of these fun embellishments, it starts to look like just like a wall of one color if you don't break up the texture. My dad would call it a wall of sound in reference to sound production, but you can see it more clearly here that I've tried to like break up the texture every time, and no texture is usually on top of another texture so that you can always see it. So that's what I'm aiming for here in a more swampy vibe. So I will come back after I've done some stitching and gluing. Okay, I love how this moss came out. I took a sphagnum moss and I just put little stitches with a variegated green and it blended right in. And I just stitched these on, sans glue. So now I'm going to mix glue and add all of our little doodly things and probably less of the gemstones because we have gemstones up here. So we need to add a more pearlescent texture down here. But I have a bunch of cool places that I can tuck things, and I have made good places for all that maximalist fun to sit so it won't look like it's overwhelming the entire area. And most of our base is very textural and natural compared to the smoothness of the stuff we're attaching, so that kind of gives you a free pass on how much stuff you can cram in one area if you are doing maximalist art. Okay, I got what I think is a pretty good layer down for a base layer in case I want to add some. But I wanted to show you that you can slip the glue under the edge and then glue stuff down on an angle. You can also just shove it and mush it down any which way you like to kind of cram them in there and make it look a little more natural than super placed. And you can push them under the moss to kind of make it a little more natural looking. So I might add a couple more, but that's looking pretty good. I feel like I'm missing something over here. I'll have to find some way to embellish that perhaps. But either way, there we go. First layer is on. Lots of contrasting textures. I think I need to just add some little doot doot some little gems to break up the bigger clumps of moss. I might even pick a different color. Okay, I think I'm going to call it before it gets too much crazier, but I realized I didn't have any tucked underneath on this side or this side of the pathway. So I added some detail there, tucked in a few more big ones that were from a different color that you guys got. But if I wanted to, I could add some more stitches, but I think I'll be happy calling this one, and it's all zhuzhy. So I hope that that was a fun exercise in creating all kinds of maximalist embellishments. And I hope this inspires you to glue a bunch of stuff to your project too. Okay, bye!